topic, again, will be wealth building and business succession planning. The panelists will discuss the different ways to build generational wealth through small business ownership and the importance of business succession planning to keep this wealth in the community. I'm excited. I can't wait. The panel discussion will be published by the end of this month on both N.E.O.N and WBC's Facebook and websites. So be sure to RSVP and you'll be added to both the email list. Lots of good information coming through both organizations, social media, and newsletters. This week's month's business luncheon is catered by Kay's Revolutionary Catering, one of my favorite caterers, and was made available, I believe, from 11 to 12 and 1 to 2 at N.E.O.N. So I believe the way it works logistically that lunch is available for pickup, right, Howard? All right, thank you. So Zoom logistics. The meeting is being recorded if you did not hear the reminder, and it will be published on, like I said, both WBC and N.E.O.N's websites and social media. Feel free to turn off your video. Please keep mics muted until we open it for participant questions. I know sometimes folks are chiming in from their cars, or, you know, if you're like me, you're doing some serious multitasking. So we just want to make sure we can hear and minimize the background noise. And I will now pass it over to Carla to do the intro for our panelists and to facilitate the panel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, hi, everyone. Carla, but this is Anna. I'm going to be facilitating the panel. Sorry, I logged out of there just for a second. My internet was unstable. So I'm Anna Schmiel. I'm one of the organizers of this event, and I'm the community engagement coordinator here at N.E.O.N. And so before we get into the questions, I'm just going to do some brief little introductions of our wonderful panelists here today. And so the first panelist that we have is Benjamin Tsai. Benjamin is the director of the Worker Ownership Initiative at Nexus Community Partners. He consults on business succession planning and helps owners explore the benefits of selling to employees. This work keeps legacy businesses rooted locally and broadens access to regenerative economic opportunities for community members. Benjamin comes to Nexus with 18 years of experience in the cooperative sector. He co-founded the Hub Bike Co-op in 2002 and has consulted for a variety of Minnesota businesses, co-ops, and nonprofits. So Benjamin, if you could give a quick little wave so people can see you. Awesome, thanks so much. Okay, and then our next panelist is Kenya McKnight Ahad. As the founder and CEO of the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, Kenya helps Black women actualize their goals of building generational Black wealth by providing cultural wealth literacy, professional development education, business leadership and strategy consultations, and by providing small capacity grants. Black Women's Wealth Alliance is a social enterprise that focuses on improving the economic stability and prosperity of historical Black women. They have served more than 3,500 Black women across Minnesota, investing over $340,000 in small capacity grants. Kenya is a 2007 LISC Fellow, a 2012 Hubert H. Humphrey Policy Fellow, a 2012 Bush Fellow, a 2017 Northstar Cooperative Fellow, a 2019 Alifa Fellow, and a 2020 Integrated Capital Institute Fellow. So Kenya, if you could give a little wave there. Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, then we have Davis Senseman. So Davis founded Davis Law Office in 2010 after nearly a decade of practicing in the corporate department of a larger law firm. Armed with this experience and knowledge of legal solutions used by large entities, Davis sets out to bring the same level of service to smaller organizations and individuals. 10 years and more than 1,100 clients later, Davis is proud of the assistance the Davis Law Office provides for companies large and small, and the expanding services they now offer for individuals. Davis serves on the advisory board of the Main Street Alliance of Minnesota, providing small businesses a voice on the most pressing public policy issues. So Davis, give a little hand wave. Awesome, awesome. And then last but not least, we have Gene Richtsmeier. Gene is a business banking relationship manager at US Bank. He's passionate about helping business owners achieve their goals. His current role at the bank allows him to be a trusted resource to small business owners and help advise them on banking needs. With a 10+ year banking background and previous small business management experience, he brings knowledge and experience his clients can leverage. So, Gene, if you could give a little hand wave here. Awesome, awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, so we are going to jump into the questions, and then we'll have around 20 minutes at the end for a Q&A. So, if you have any questions that come up that you would like the panelists to answer, please just pop them in the chat, and then we will get to them at the end of the panel. Okay. So the first question that we have is, how does your work impact the ability to build wealth in a community like North Minneapolis? And so, whoever wants to start out of the panel, you can just unmute yourself. Kenya, I feel like not to put you on the spot, but I feel like you would be a perfect person to start us off with that question.
Sure. Good afternoon and welcome everyone, and thank you for having me. At its foundation, I think for me, our work is greatly rooted in busting through historical economic trauma that is greatly infused by the culture of white violence towards Black economics. And so our work is about dismantling white supremacy through that lens by helping historical Black people understand what this plight has been for us economically through the struggle and oppression of our economic situation. Understand that it isn't just this idea of our inability to build wealth or to understand what it is. It's also rooted in these structural, historical, and current barriers that ensure our inability to access it in meaningful ways, that has created trauma that we have not really recognized and that is not recognized. And so our work is about how to kind of unveiling that and helping us understand it, but also building pathways out of that oppression by looking at some of our root understanding, history, knowledge of finance, of wealth building, the practices that we use today, how we show up in the space of wealth and money, but also figuring out other ways to think about what our capital, what our wealth is and could be through generations of our family. So we kind of move out of this space of living through the day and the moment and the crisis of now, but moving into this long-term frame, if that makes sense. But that's, I think, at the root, what we get at in our work through our narrative, through our, the model we use, the language we use, the concepts, the practice, and that in itself enables, or it helps our community feel more confident and comfortable and clear about a pathway that makes sense for them to build generational wealth.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kenya. That's so important, really laying the foundation for that work. Jean, Davis, Benjamin, do you have any thoughts on how your work, can impact North Minneapolis community wealth building?
Yeah, I mean, I could speak for Nexus. Our focus is really about creating a more democratic economy. So a lot of that is done through trying to create opportunities for actual community ownership of really broad parts of the economy. That would include businesses, housing, real estate. And so our work does connect to cooperative movements and models in all of those areas. In the area of business though, especially specific conversation, we do a lot of work to try and increase employee ownership opportunities in the business realm. And one of those routes is like in succession planning, and when business owners are looking to restructure or even retire, we were able to help them consider one of the options of, selling to their employees. And that not only gives ownership opportunities to community members working there, but it keeps that business rooted locally, and in the long term, keeps that legacy business running. And so that's some of the work we do. And we also, I should just mention really quick, we work in a lot of different areas of business, including startups too. And so, yeah, always happy to chat about different strategies for broadening employee ownership and community ownership of different parts of the economy.
Well, that actually leads perfectly to our next question. And you can always, circle back that first question is kind of foundational to, this luncheon and why we're gathering here today. And so the next question is a bit more specific, and that is, what is succession planning? Because that's a really technical term. It encompasses a lot of things. So what are some scenarios where the succession needs to take place? Some examples is retirement, death, disability. So, what's the legal perspective? What's the cooperative perspective? All that.
I can talk a little bit about that. So from a legal perspective, our businesses, if we have them set up in any sort of a way, they kind of exist separate from the business owner. And so, when and if the business owner decides I'm done doing this, or, is unable to do it, that's what we refer to when we think about succession planning. It's kind of what's going to happen to this business when the original owner or owners don't or can't or don't want to continue doing it. And so it's something that, for the business owner, it's kind of, they often only think of it in terms of like retirement. When I'm done, what do I want to do? But I think there are lots of other periods of time when folks can think about succession planning. One is definitely, if you want to retire, if you want to, or if what happens on your death, what happens if you're unable to work. But another is kind of, it comes up a lot for business owners when they have a really talented employee and they are thinking like, I want to keep this person, but I obviously can't just keep paying them more money because I don't have. So oftentimes succession planning will first come up then when they think, how can I keep this person in this business? And then they can start to talk about like, well, what's your plan when maybe this employee or this group of employees that you want to keep, they may be interested in kind of taking over this business long-term down the road. So I think it's like big picture. I often tell people it's thinking about like a will for your business, like what do you want to happen with the business? But making sure that also kind of these businesses that serve communities will stay there, thinking of it from not just the business owner's perspective, but also from the community's perspective. So that's all I have from the legal.
Yeah, I think those are really good points, because at the bank we sometimes run into these scenarios when there's not a clear successor in place, and that causes some real issues. Like I had just a scenario off the top of my head. I had a father-daughter ran business. It was always planned for the daughter to take over the business. Dad got remarried, which was fine. Mother-in-law was all on board with daughter taking over the business eventually, but then dad passed away, and things still ran fine, but they never set up a clear successor. And then when the mother-in-law passed away, it caused a number of issues with now all of a sudden her kids all of a sudden got involved. And then we had it where it was a scenario where she had to buy out her brother and sister-in-law who were never involved in the business just because they didn't have a clear plan in place. So I think it's just really important to have a plan in place. You know, at the bank, we kind of we'll help facilitate maybe the financing end of the purchase. You know, if it's an employee buyout or a partner buyout or some sort of acquisition, we kind of get in on we can help get in on the early stages and maybe help, you know, just let ownership know kind of what underwriting and what the approval process looks like, if that is something you're looking to pursue or carry on with. So it's just I think it's important to just, you know, have a plan, you know, get together with your team, your advisory team, you know, get a team together, you know, with your CPA, your attorney, have a conversation with your banker. I think it's good. I think the earlier you have these conversations with the people in your team to help, because, you know, these transactions don't happen overnight. So it's not something that happens it's not going to happen in 2 weeks. It's something you build, you know, you work towards. And I think if you have people in on the ground floor advising you, it's just going to make it when it's time to do something a lot easier, and it's gonna go through for you if you have the right team of consultants in place.
Yeah, and you know, statistically, most business owners unfortunately don't do succession planning until it's like crunch time. So definitely recommended to just start early, and you know, it does take a lot of time to develop new management and succession strategies. You know, getting people actually ramped up with the knowledge and the skills needed to be ready. You know, it takes a lot of time, and these deals definitely will function better if they are not under the pressure of whatever event is sort of forcing these considerations. And oftentimes they call it the 3Ds, death, disability, and divorce oftentimes drive these things. And some of those, or all of them, are generally, you can't really anticipate, you know, exactly when it's going to happen. So you you just have to prepare ahead of time. And even if you hopefully don't really need it.
I think what I'd add to that is really seeing your business as an asset, something that you invest in and you grow over time, and something that you'll leave through perhaps generations of your family or community. And that's really important. And so you can build the asset, but you also have to protect it and put the right measures in place to ensure that it lives beyond you. And that's part of the idea of wealth. And so I think starting with a vision of, you know, how you see your company living through time, through you, through your family, through the community, the things you care about, the purpose of why you're in business to begin. I mean, making money is certainly a part of it, but what's the social impact? What do you hope to achieve, to accomplish? And, you know, how will your business play a role in that? And how do you strengthen and prepare enough, you know, for your business to be successful? Because that comes with not just the money we make, but how we invest in the very ideas and businesses that we create. And for me, that's fundamental to succession planning. It starts with that, with the vision that leads you to all the other aspects of building the relationships, the knowledge you need necessary to even know that you need a banker, to even know that you need an attorney, to even know, right, that you need to look at this outside of your family, because every child or family member may not want to continue your business. Is that the end of it? Or are you looking at other options of perhaps selling your business? I mean, there's a lot of things to explore that I think we will talk about in this conversation, but at heart, it starts with that vision and purpose you have for how you want your business to show up in life, not only with, but beyond you through time.
That's an excellent point, because, you know, these businesses, they take a really long time to grow. And so you want to make sure that when it's time for you to retire, all that work doesn't just disappear. You know, as a business owner, you employ people, you know, that's in and of itself. You know, oftentimes local business owners, you know, employ people from the community that they live and work in. And so, you know, that's another aspect of making sure that those jobs continue and that those people in things as well, build wealth. So completely agree. You know, and that kind of leads to our next question, which is, you know, what are the different types of succession? You know, is there, you know, transferring ownership to an individual, you know, helping your business, there's forming it into a cooperative. Can you guys talk about, you know, anything I missed, what those are, the pros and cons of those different options in terms of wealth building in your perspective?
Yeah, I could jump in on that. I mean, first of all, too, statistically, a lot of businesses don't sell. And so I think this conversation really should also focus on that is an option, right? So that said, I mean, the different, I think, classic routes, handing it off to a family member, selling to an outside buyer, or liquidating, unfortunately. And, you know, one of the areas we really focus on is making sure that people understand all the options, right? And when you're selling, like if your family isn't interested, one area that is sort of oftentimes overlooked is selling to the employees. You know, these are folks that already know how to run the business, are super invested, even helped build, you know, potentially some of that wealth that's in the business. And so, you know, our work specializes in trying to help line up not the pathway to do that. So, you know, the actual deal structure, getting the employees ready, trained up, and even helping align the financing to help the business go through. So that's a cool option that keeps the business rooted. And it's one of the more, in my mind at least, streamlined ways to do it, because the actual transition of work is relatively smooth, can be, because all these folks, the employees, already know what's going on. You know, you're not getting an outside equity investor who's going to maybe, you know, if you're lucky and they give you a good price, you don't know that they're going to keep everybody on board. Maybe they'll just gut the business. Who knows? So the other cool thing is when you're selling to your employees, you can really create a customized transition plan. You can even stay in the business and keep working, do either as a co-owner or as a consultant. So there's a lot of benefits to look at there. And, you know, are always happy to talk to folks about what those benefits are.
Awesome. No, that's a really good point about, you know, if you sell it to someone that's kind of providing you wealth versus if you transfer ownership to your workers, people, like you said, who helped you build that company's wealth, that's keeping it within community. That's a really important point. Any of the other panelists have anything to add with that? Or else we can, oh, yes.
Yeah, I just, you know, wanted to add that I know that when talking about like employees buying a business or buying a business at all, it can often be like a daunting thought, because it's like, well, how on earth, you know, am I as an employee, or are my employees going to come up with the amount of money they need to, you know, buy me out? A lot of people will sometimes think like, well, I'll get more if I sell to like, you know, an investor or something like that. And really, if you start planning earlier, I think that that's not always the case, because I always tell folks like, yeah, it's easy for me to pay you $1 million if I pay you $1 a day for 1 million days. You know, it's, and so if you start thinking about, if you know, hey, I got a group of employees who are gonna, you know, take this business, keep its values, keep it in this community, then start talking early, you know, and the employees can help figure out who's in, who's out. I've done a lot of, I've worked on some deals where that's the case, where the employees themselves form a co-op and decide, hey, here's how long you have to be here before. But if you start talking early, then your banker that you work with, there's going to be a lot more options. So it doesn't always have to be that, I'm going to go with this individual investor because they have a lot of money or because there are ways to structure it, to figure it out so that your employees can kind of, you can keep a percentage of profits. Like it was said, you can stay in there. You can really customize these things as much as you want.
The only thing I'll add to that, and Jean, are you trying to say something? You're on mute. You're muted.
Okay, Jean, you're muted. So what we'll do is Kenya, go ahead, and then Jean, after she's done, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, because I imagine Jean, and Davis would add to this from legal, as well as Benjamin. I think it's really important to remember, because I know you asked Anna about the steps and succession planning. And I think, again, going back to the idea that your business is an actual asset, and that you're transferring over knowledge, information, a lot of things that need to be documented, right? So you have to take good stock of what you have, what your processes are. So even your inventory, right? Like, for Tito in the background over there cutting hair, right? So all of his equipment and all those things, those are assets. And even if they are depreciating, they're assets. But the processes you take, for your company, for even hiring people, or the vendors, your partnerships, all of those things need to be documented, because when you're transferring over the company or selling, right, you're transferring over the values, you're transferring over the relationships, the vendors, all of those things. So the importance of documenting what your processes are, what your assets are, which also help you understand the value, right, proposition of your company. By documenting those things is really important. When we take it sometimes for granted because we're just, in business and we're operating, and that thing that you do, right, is the thing that you do. But that thing is also could be an asset and great value to your company. But you need to make sure that's documented, right? Because you're not just selling a company, you're selling a brand, you're selling values, you're selling relationships, resources, stuff that you put in over time. But you have to also document what those things are, right? And make that part of that transfer, because that is also your wealth.
Jean, that's such a good point, about making sure you have the process down, because that is your business and that'll help continue to make it successful. Jean, did you want to add something?
Oh, I was just gonna say those are great points, as far as especially the discussion early. I just most of the deals I see at the bank are going to be typically is an employee buyout or a partner buyout. So those are just those can get done, but they get it done a lot easier when the discussions happened earlier. Just doing things to prep the potential buyer on what a down payment looks like for them and how they can get that down payment, or maybe they can buy ownership into the business somehow to set up a future partner buyout. There's just a lot of things. There's a lot of ways to structure these deals to find a way to get them done. But if they're trying to get done in the 11th hour, usually that's when I see them. That's where I see all the issues come up.
I thought I'd just
add, that's a great point, and that. Oh, sorry, Benjamin. I'm gonna, just because we have a few questions to get to more, I'm just gonna, there's two really important ones to get to, and I want to make sure we have time to, get some Q&A. So I'm gonna say both of these, so then, you can just answer whichever one is relevant to you. So this is, I guess, really geared towards Jean. How are financial institutions adjusting to continue providing tools/products to help customers maintain and build wealth? So especially, amid the pandemic and succession planning being very different, how are financial institutions, supporting those transfers of ownership? And then, how is succession planning being impacted by the pandemic? Because there's a lot of businesses that, all of a sudden they're going to have to close their doors, but, maybe workers could get together and purchase them. So, is there changes that, you all have seen in light of that? Oh, Gene, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. So yeah, I mean, I see the pandemic's kind of maybe stalled some transactions. Maybe people who are thinking of making a purchase, now they're unsure because of what the business will look like in the future, and so there's some concern there. As far as as the bank is, what I've been doing a lot at the bank has been around the payroll protection program and a lot of the different government assistance programs that the bank is that the government's rolling out with and helping facilitate that to clients. So that's been what's been dominating my day to day. So that's just been a big part of that. But it's some acquisitions. If for example, someone's looking to sell their business and then they had this big PPP loan can't come up. What does that look like? How do they get that forgiven? They work on maybe getting that piece forgiven or getting that forgiveness application process so they can move forward with their sale. But it's just the biggest thing is it's maybe slowed down some of those purchases.
Benjamin, did you have something to add, or even if it was something from before?
Not on that topic. We can touch base on the Q&A.
Okay, great. Any of the other panelists here? And then I do have one more quick question I want to get to, and then we'll open it up. Okay, so I'm going to do the next question then, and then we will open it up to Q&A. So thanks everyone for being patient. But, we've talked a lot about transferring ownership, selling your business, but what are different ways business owners can build future wealth besides growing their business? So, purchasing their building, for example, is that something, that you have, engaged in with your work? And if so, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've worked with a few clients who have had an opportunity to buy their business or buy their building rather. And that's, I think hopefully because the city of Minneapolis has kind of expressed that as a goal to help business owners kind of keep wealth in their communities. Hopefully that'll be something that we'll see kind of more opportunities for folks to do. Because, then as we've seen a lot of folks through this pandemic, being shut down, but still having to pay rent, that certainly makes that a little easier. And then they also have another asset as part of their business asset. But yeah, I mean, I think people often think about building or buying their building, kind of taking over things so that they can anticipate their expenses, keep them capped. Another way is maybe setting up a more traditional retirement account. I think a lot of small business owners don't really know what our options are. It seems like, and many times like a 401k might not make sense, but there are options like, retirement accounts and things like that. And so finding the right advisor who can help you figure that out and really help you kind of look at your situation as you get right now, October, November, December in a year, and figure out like, is there something you should do? Is there some way you should be like taking money out of the business, the exact same amount you would have, taken out for your payment, but should you be doing it in a different way so that, it can be helping you to save for the future? I think those are really important questions that small business owners just don't always have the answers to.
Yeah, I agree. I'd add a couple of things here. The idea of wealth is also greatly centered on income. and your ability to have money to pay for things, to purchase things, to invest in things. And if you have more time, if you need to build, the wealth mindset is very important, right? So you can't build wealth on the poverty mindset, okay? Wealth is about scaling up. It's about the future. It isn't about the access of something immediately. So the idea of long-term is important, one. And as a strategy, it's important to have at least 7 streams of income. And so that means that even if you're hustling and you have a job that you work on the side that's part-time, that can help power the assets you invest in, that's important, right? It doesn't mean you're bossless because you have a job. I actually have worked a job the whole time, part-time in my business. But that job also pays for things that I don't have to come out of my pocket for. And the idea of wealth also is about that as well. It isn't about just getting a home and say, I got a home, so I'm building wealth. If you can't pay the mortgage, then that wealth is in jeopardy. So income is fundamental to wealth building. So I just want to really reiterate that because we're being greatly infused with the ideas, which I agree with to some extent, that we need to purchase everything, but you got to be able to pay for the things you purchase it and have some kind of stability to keep it around long term so that it actually can grow in its value and become a tool that is real wealth for you. And that's important. So I just want to put that out there. But I think that as a business owner, we should really be pressing the banks as well. If you have a business bank account, you should establish one and build those relationships. The banks have a lot of tools that will allow you to build wealth. Wealth shows up through insurance, the type of insurance plans you have. I mean, you pass, right? Like, what kind of money you want to leave, right? For your family, things like that. I mean, most of us are, in these, what do they call it? Term life insurance. Well, there's whole life, there's universal, there's a lot. And we're paying $30 and $40 a month for $20,000 policies when it takes about $10,000 to $15,000 to bury someone. So you're leaving your children $1,000. So, I mean, that's not wealth, right? That's not the ability to leave them set up to be a little bit okay after you transition, because we inevitably will. So it is about exploring the insurance policies that you have. It is also about why that job is important. And I'll say this last point and be done. Why the job is important for those who, need to make more money is because it offers different benefits that you may not be able to provide yourself with right away as an entrepreneur, such as health, right? Your medical, such as other policies and other tools, your employee benefit packages for your 401k, retirement planning. There's so much to it. And banks also have access to insurance policies, to your Roth plans, your IRA accounts that can be used as a business to build your own retirement. So there's a lot of ways to build wealth than just buying a house and a building, which I do encourage, but we've got to have the money to make sure that we can sustain the investment in those things.
That is such a good point, Kenya. And that, that actually goes to going into the Q&A, because I've gotten a lot of questions on that in the chat. What are options out there for retirement for entrepreneurs? You mentioned a bit about working with your bank. Can people talk a bit more about that? And how would you get started if you're an entrepreneur and you're wondering how to set yourself up for retirement? What are the steps that you would recommend, or who would you recommend going to?
I mean, one of the easiest, maybe, is just setting up an IRA. There are Vanguard, for example, does a super cheap IRA, and you depending on whether it's Roth or not, you can do pre or post-tax contributions to that. But generally pretty simple. I just wanted to also say that the flip side to like wealth building is controlling your debt. In my opinion, like if you don't make sure to keep tabs on like how much you're paying for debt, all that wealth could just be draining away, right? So I think it's critical to keep an eye on both sides of that coin, and really keep try to pay off your debt early. you know, because that's always a drain if you're not watching on it.
That's a really good point. In terms of like specific, I guess, retirement savings accounts, how is that different for a business owner? Maybe just to get in the weeds, but how I know that traditional employers, they have those things for their employees. If you are one that has to set that up, how would you go about setting that up? And, who would you go to set that up, both for yourself, but then also for your employees?
At the bank, we'd give you we have wealth bankers that we can set you up with, and it's free to talk to them and just have a conversation, kind of what your plans are and how maybe you would want to make an investment, or how you'd want to set up some of those different plans and get into it in more detail. So yeah, and it's free to just have that conversation. There's no cost to doing that. So I think it's good to just meet with one of the, just ask to meet with one of the wealth advisors at the bank, and they're going to be happy to talk with you.
Yeah, and help you set up the right plan that's good for you as a business owner. We should all have IRA accounts, and you can invest in that monthly at the level that you're ready. I started with $50 a month, and because what was important for me was not how much, but was about building my consistency and the habit of actually putting money away, as a small business owner. And now as a business owner, which I am, is now I'm actually becoming an employee of my company, where that's a different position. Now I can access different benefits for myself, although on the back end, I'm paying the taxes for it, and the fees to the government. But you want to get, to a place, that's another thing, are you going to remain the independent contractor, or the independent business owner, sole proprietor? It's a different place. You can still, have a IRA account as such, but there are levels, there's, and when you convert to the place of being able to be an employee of your own company, you're still the owner, but you access a different level of benefit that, yes, you have to pay for, but that also allows you to provide your employees with, different health and other insurance and retirement savings, benefits that is of value to their ability to build wealth, such as 401k, etc. But I also have a relationship with Thrivent Financial. That's who I work with mostly. And they put together some customized packages for my staff, my employees, that, allows me to pay an affordable rate annually, so that they have access to starting a Roth if they want, or 401k. So to me, making sure your company's insured is also important. Your business insurance, there's a lot of different types. You want to make sure that is there to cover and protect your assets. That's part of how you protect your wealth you're building. But also kind of the universal insurance I have for myself covers me, my nieces and nephews. I'm not a fraternal parent, but also there's money that I'm leaving for the company, right? So that it can continue its operations after I go, which is part of the investment. So I think talking to a banker or a wealth planner is important, because they know a lot about this. And in our communities, particularly Black, Indigenous, Hispanic, and other communities of colors, we don't readily have access to this information. The real disparity is the knowledge that the banks and these other financial institutions sit and have access to, where they'll just talk to you or listen to you and provide you with all this information and tools you never knew existed. That is a strategy and a way for you to build wealth as an entrepreneur and an individual, that don't cost a ton of money.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Just finding the person that you trust and talking with them early on and having those conversations, because they will, like Davis answered Devon's question, they will, walk you through the different options. Because, we could go through all the options here, but that's super confusing. And I know that, it's different for everyone. And so that's where they can really personalize it. So finding, a financial advisor that you trust. And that actually brings me to another attendee question, which is, what's the difference between a financial planner versus a wealth advisor? And are both needed?
I think they're probably the same thing with different titles. So, I mean, they're probably the same. It's just like, wealth banker, personal banker, it's just kind of the same. It's just this, I would put them in the same category.
Great. No, that makes sense. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's really like, I just can't stress enough to folks, like, find someone that makes sense for you, because oftentimes it'll be like, oh, these people are, this firm or whatever, like, works with artists or what, name the industry. And everybody feels like, okay, well, this is where I have to go. And oh no, this place has, and it's such a personal thing. And like, I always encourage people, don't, I mean, I've had my firm for 10 years, and I just this year finally found a tax person who I feel like gets my situation and can explain it to me, and like isn't just like, well, you should be putting all this cash away. And I'm like, well, where is that cash supposed to come from? And it's like I just found the person, and I've been through a lot of them. And I think it's hard for us for business owners to remember, like, those folks work for you. And so if what they're saying doesn't make sense, or it doesn't feel like it's a good fit, like, you just move right on. And just because they work, just because it's like, oh, this person works with, fill in the blank industry or whatever, it's a process, and you might outgrow some people, and you might, have different needs. But I think that's really important to remember, like anyone, your attorney, your accountant, anyone, they work for you. So if they're not like doing it the way you want it, go find another one.
That is a very, very good point. Yeah, I mean, they have to be bringing something to the table. You shouldn't just have them to say that you have them, because if it's not a relationship that's working for you, you might not be investing the money in a way that makes you comfortable and makes sense for your cash flow and your business. It's a really good point. And then I know that, someone brought up that a financial planner has a certification and a wealth advisor doesn't necessarily have that credential. And so, that's something where, the pros and cons of getting someone that is certified. Can anyone talk about that? Because I know that there's been some confusion regarding which is, to be quite honest, more legitimate. Any thoughts on that before we wrap up?
I would think maybe Jean, I don't know what certification processes that, banks, but typically financial institutions that engage in wealth planning have to have a certification, Series C. And so it is important to distinguish, what you're dealing with, someone who just has information. I'm not a wealth planner. I'm not a certified wealth planner through the financial institutions to know about all the different products and tools that are available through those systems. I have education about wealth, of course, but not in the sense that would constitute me as an actual advisor, who can give advice about even the stock market, investing in different, insurance plans and how they work, and to negotiate on your behalf. That's some of the difference. And you do want to be clear, but I also want to say that for me, what's also important is that we normalize the idea of having an advisor or a planner that we can talk to in our communities. It has to be a normal part of how we operate, as part of how we build the wealth through generations. It isn't just the asset attainment, it is the normalcy of the practice and the knowledge that we have these conversations about money. what is a planner, and that know that there is accessible to us. It's not a white thing, it's not foreign. It is the way you access the way the wealth system is set up in this country.
That's a really good point. And it doesn't always have to be formal too, because a lot of this stuff is like, you know, some people, a lot of white people grow up with like, you know, their parents or whatever being like, oh, so this is how you invest, this is how you do that. And that's very informal. But you know, that's something where that knowledge is in every community. And so that is really important. That's a really good point, Kenya. So I think, you know, we only have 2 minutes. So I want to make sure, thank you. First of all, big round of applause to all the panelists. Thank you so much for taking the time, you know, during this crazy busy time to, you know, talk to everyone. This has been really helpful and just really great, you know, foundational knowledge. So before we wrap up, I just want to, you know, give a shout out to the caterer. So that food, it's by Kay's Revolutionary Catering, who is a N.E.O.N client, and they have ziti with a mixed green salad and dressing. And so that is at N.E.O.N right now. And so it'll be available until 2, and there's also a vegetarian option as well. And then the meat that is in the meat version is beef. So just so everyone's aware of that. So stop on by, we still have some of those. And then the next luncheon is next month, as always, the 3rd Thursday. And so that is Thursday, November 19th, and it's on small business and commercial financing. So kind of going more into the commercial side of wealth building. And then just a quick reminder before I turn it over to Devon here to give the final, you know, goodbye. This year's Black Friday on Broadway is going to be a little different. We are having it in person. We're making sure that we have it socially distanced, at least 10 feet apart for vendor tables. And we're actually having it at Sanctuary. So it'll be like a great large space. We actually have the amount of space so we can have the 30 vendors, and we're going to have an outdoor area where we're going to have, you know, possibly some food vendors, but we're definitely complying with all the state and city regulations on that. And that'll just be a really great way to, you know, support entrepreneurship and marketplace opportunities during this time when there really aren't a ton. And so that is Black Friday, November 27th from 2 to 8 p.m. And then it's also that Small Business Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So we're really excited to see everyone there. So keep an eye out on the Facebook page. We'll have some vendor previews coming up. It should be good. We have a great group of vendors this year. Okay, so Devon, do you have anything else to share?
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's crazy that we're talking about Black Friday on Broadway. How is it October, right? Like this year has flown past. So thank you so much to the panelists. This was amazing. I counted, I think, 67 attendees at one point, which is really, really, really for me as a board member and community member, really speaks volumes about the fact that this is important. People chose to prioritize it and give their time to it. So I appreciate all the knowledge and information that was shared by the panelists. And these are our community resources, right? We are a resource-rich community. We have experts right here who are accessible to us. So thank you for your time. Thank you to Kay's Revolutionary Catering. I did have the vegetarian ziti and it was delicioso because I was hungry. And so I appreciate also Anna and Carla and Felicia really being innovative and figuring out ways to continue to do this work in the middle of a triple pandemic, still getting lunch to folks and really being creative and innovative. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to drop your contact info in the chat. We'll leave that open for a little bit so we can add you to both of our email lists. And any questions that weren't addressed, I know Carla put it in the chat. Feel free to email. We will go back through and, you know, respond to any questions that weren't hit. So thank you so much for joining us and have a great weekend.